Well, Dan, nice drive down to Plover today. Welcome to Mayor's Monday. You're not a mayor per se. You're not elected, but you're still a decision maker. You're still a leader down here. And what, as you and I were just chatting off the air a little bit, is a booming village down here just south of Stevens Point.
Exactly. A lot of growth and development happening in the village of Plover. We've always had a strong growth pattern for the village, and it looks like 2019 is shaping up to be a very strong year again for the village of Plover.
You haven't released exact numbers yet, but about $3 million or so worth of construction, and you said a lot of that is going to be single family homes. So every time one of those homes goes up, you're adding three, four, five, maybe or more people to the village, right?
That's absolutely correct. So, January and February usually your slower months for development. Not this year for single family for the village of Plover. $1.5 million of construction already for residential development in January. And again, matching or exceeding that number in February is what it looks like. So, yes, a very good start to a normally slow part of the year.
And what exactly is driving that? Do you have just a lot of lots that are ready to go right now? You've got, I'm guessing, a lot of developers too that are just ready to go as well.
Sure. I think what helps us is there's very limited areas for single family development, especially of larger subdivisions in the urban area. And so because of that, this particular area of the village, which is located in the southeast part of the village, which has already seen some residential development, that has become kind of an attractor for the developers who are looking to make subdivisions. Clearly, folks like to live within communities with other folks and younger families, and this is an area that's certainly growing in that form and fashion. So it really helps that we already had some of that development, and it's just kind of continuing to build on that particular area.
And that goes right in hand with some of the things that I've been talking about with some of your counterparts in other areas. Mayor Mike Wiesa up in Stevens Point, he's pushed job creation, job creation, job creation. We know the Metallico plant is going to be going up in Wisconsin Rapids here as soon as they can break ground up just to your north and west. That single family living area, they've got to have a place to live, and you're within driving distance of both of those areas.
Absolutely. We might be considered in some ways a suburb, but if you think about larger communities, really, it's a very short driving distance. So yes, as long as we're seeing jobs being created in the urban area, and Stevens Point, as you mentioned, is doing a wonderful job of that. Obviously, those folks that are coming into the community need a place to live. And we happen to have lots of land available for single-family development. So it's a win-win. New jobs being created in Stevens Point with new value and new buildings. And the village benefits by seeing some of those folks choosing to live in the village of Plover and build their homes here.
So then just exactly what does the village of Plover have to offer those residents that might be considering the area?
Well, I think one of the major advantages is because the village is somewhat of a younger community. Folks, when they're building and they have young families, they like to be in neighborhoods that have young children in them as well. And so clearly, with many of these new subdivisions, it's young families that are building. We have other areas that are geared towards senior type of housing too, so it's a little bit different format of how those houses are built. But that's kind of a new concept that's being constructed, so that's nice too. So we're meeting niches of kind of what people are looking for their homes.
And one of the things too that younger families tend to want sometimes is they want to be as green as possible, and you're going to help them out with that a little bit as well. When it comes to solar energy on their homes, you were just telling me you've got a great kind of benefit for those families.
That's correct. So just at the village board meeting last evening, the village board approved a Soul Smart initiative where we are getting funding, we being the village of Plover, the city of Stevens Point, the village of Amherst, to go after a new program that basically, right now, property owners have some rights with respect to solar energy. And what we can do, and what we've been asked to do, is kind of be a part of this Soul Smart initiative that will streamline the process for folks looking to install solar. A good example would be, if a residential property owner wants to install roof-mounted solar panels, right now they have to go through a process of approval, which is pretty routine in the village of Plover. But the thought process, if it's routine, can we make that administrative? It makes it much easier for the property owner to go ahead and go through that process. thereby stimulating the process. And so we are in the process. The village board said, yes, that's a very good idea. So now we will work with the folks that have been assigned to help with this project to guide us through, review our ordinance, and make some suggestions of how we can make the process easier for those looking to implement solar power.
Especially because you implement those panels like that, there's some tax credits that you can get from the government, there's other areas of funding, and once you get those panels in, they're for 20 years or so, they're right there, and you're getting your energy absolutely free for once you make the initial investment, of course.
Exactly. It's amazing how far solar has come along with respect to the efficiencies of the system. So you're right, it's really helping power the homes, but potentially there's extra power that goes back on the grid. So we need to be aware of that and kind of work with not only the industry but the property owners that want to do that, and that's part of what this is all about.
So then when can we possibly see the final approval for this, and how much easier then will it make it for residents to get approval for such a project?
So I would assume that after talking to the folks we're working with, we'll probably have about a 2 or 3 month period where they'll look through our ordinance, make some suggestions. After they make the suggestions, we'll look at revising the ordinances. So what I would tell you, probably in a 6-8 month period, we'll probably have the final results of going through the village board. Obviously, if there's things that we can do sooner, we will do that. And then, of course, it streamlines the process for those folks and makes it a lot easier because, as you mentioned, they have the ability to garner credits for building them, and we want them to be able to get to those as quickly as possible, take advantage of those incentives, and get it up. And so this will really, really help them do that much sooner.
Yeah, it sounds like an absolutely great opportunity for the residents down here. Again, if they want more information on this process or how they could possibly benefit, is there a way that they can get a hold of the village, or is
Sure,
that
they
a
can.
way off? Yeah.
They can contact Ryan Karnuski. Ryan is the village's community development manager. So they can call the village's office. Is that for Ryan? And Ryan certainly would love to talk to them and give them an update on where we're at.
As far as on the business side of things, of course, Plover, I went right by it on the way down from the interstate. You've got a lot of great strip malls, a lot of very appealing mixed-use developments down here as well. Do you have any updates on maybe something else coming in that area?
Sure, very good. Great question. So Crossroads Commons, which is probably the one most well-known by folks. We are actually working with the developer. They have an option on property between where Best Buy is and Goodwill is. They're currently working on a shopping center type of development. They have 4 potential retailers that are interested in developing. It's a fun story. So they started off with 2 developers that were interested in developing. They said, gee, we really would like 1 or 2 more to get critical mass. That would be great. Well, they went out and they were able to find 2 more. Well, those next 2 said, we just need 1 more for critical mass. So now we're in the process of finding that last retailer. But, that will be nice because now we're talking about, 5 new retailers that are not in this area whatsoever, that will be brand new to the area, that would be located, within that development. And, what a wonderful addition to Crossroads Commons. That would be, that is a hugely successful retail development. It's turned into a regional power center. Not even the developers themselves figured that development would be as successful as it has been. So that's good news, and we look forward to being able to bring some more announcement about who those folks are maybe in a couple of months.
Yeah, retail, it seems like these days sometimes gets kind of a bad rap, or it almost seems like a dirty word. You hear about Shopko, you hear about everybody else that's going under, but to see a development like that's powered by retail largely, that is actually thriving and growing, is not something you see every day.
Right, and retail is a very interesting thing right now for the very reasons that you mentioned. You can have certain aspects of the retail that are strong that kind of resist a little bit the online shopping. But you have the Shopkos of the world, the Yonkers of the world that kind of suffered. And of course, we have both of those businesses on the B corridor. And so, part of our development effort right now is kind of looking at those facilities and what we can do to attract new tenants and refill those spaces. We actually, with the Yonkers building, have been working with the new owner on that and actually passed on a suggestion that might be a little bit different than retail, but it might be office related with some very nice growth potential. So now we're creating activity there. It's not retail activity, but still it's a lot of employees, so that that may be helpful into finding future uses for the Shopko project, which in itself is a little bit of a challenge because while everybody has read the information in the paper about Shopko, Shopko has not notified the Village of Plover whatsoever what their plans are. So until we get some, direct information, we're kind of trying to work things on the side in anticipation, but we've got no word with respect to what will be happening there.
So then when you're able to repurpose something like that, maybe bring in a different use for it, you mentioned the possibility of offices. What are you adding to the village then when you take something like that and turn it over into a different use?
Sure. Again, what you want to look at is making sure that the area is still viable. So what are compatible uses that would be a good fit that still can allow you to have, a viable retail area? So if you think about it, if you have office development there, actually you look at a lot of retail areas. In fact, that was part of the premise behind the Crossroads Commons complex, which is you had this very large business park. Sales were flagging. Well, what was the answer to make sales in the business park work better? A retail center. So by basically creating some appropriate fitting office development, in one of the smaller users, you're creating the traffic, you're creating employers, you're creating potential buyers and shoppers right next door to a building that you're looking to, get back on the market from a retail standpoint. So from that perspective, it seems to be a good fit. A couple other things to add. So Shopko already has been approached, their pharmacists have been approached, and so Hometown Pharmacy is looking at taking their pharmacists and creating a separate office right next door in an existing building. Mm-hmm. And so we'll have a pharmacy component that is not in the same building, but is right in the same neighborhood. The same concept is being looked at by Shopko themselves, where they are going to keep their optical portion of the business. We don't know right now if that stays in the building, but there's a lot of options right next door to them, in front of them, for great space for them that they can be where they want to be as part of their plans, and we can help them out. We just need to have that contact with the company to see kind of what they're thinking and pass along our suggestions. So the sooner we can help them get that all set up and ready to go, the better, because again, the more folks we're bringing in to make that attractive, that gives us a better possibility of filling the rest of that vacant space that's in that retail area.
It's a giant puzzle, and you have the task of putting it together just about every day, don't you?
Exactly. Yep.
Well, we appreciate the time this week, Dan. We'll definitely look forward to chatting again in the future, because you got a lot of great projects on the line here, and we'll look forward to seeing how this develops over the next year or so.
Very good. We look forward to following up.